with our friends over at DC Comics, the New 52.
Ooh.
They're a cool Facebook page that talk about everything DC Comics. So if you want to check them out, their URL is facebook.com/Aquaman is badass. So check them out, give them a like. They're really cool guys.
Is that really the URL?
That is their legit URL.
That's really funny.
When they come on next week, I'm going to be like, why do you think Aquaman's badass? I mean, he kind of is now, but we'll see. We'll talk to them. So I get some comic news for you folks, like I do every week.
To the factory.
To the factory of comic news. So it was announced earlier this week, and I posted a photo of it on our Facebook page, that Mark Waid is leaving the Hulk series, and Jerry Duggan is coming on.
Who's Jerry Duggan? What has he done?
He writes Nova right now. He also writes Deadpool with Brian Posehn. He's done a couple other things. I believe he did that story with Brian Posehn with like Santa fighting zombies, like a couple years back, like Zombie Christmas or something. So I mean, like he's more maybe like a comical writer at times, but he can be serious. He's a good writer. He's really good.
Okay.
So like the Hulk is in good hands. But there was a little outrage on the internet because I guess Mark Waid has the tendency to blow a stack sometimes. So people, there was a rumor going on that he walked out on the series.
On Hulk?
Yeah, but he put out a little tweet saying that everything's in good graces. I wanted to focus more on Daredevil because Mark Waid is also writing Daredevil, which I hear is amazing. So I just want to focus on that, and there's no bad blood with the Hulk. So no bad blood. Mark Waid, Hulk, done, but no bad blood.
No bad blood. All right, well, that's good.
And if you guys want to see the cool cover for the 5th issue, the first issue that Jerry Duggan and Mark Bagley will be on as artist.
Mark Bagel.
Is on our Facebook page, so check it out. It's a cool little
check it out.
Cool little cover. The Hulk looks ultra jacked, and he's holding Iron Man's helmet.
Check it out with Dr. Steve Mastrangelo.
All right, folks. So we've talked about how they're going to have 3D covers in September, DC again.
Such a stupid gimmick.
It is a stupid gimmick, but these covers do look kind of cool.
You know what? I like it better than foil covers.
I agree.
I think foil covers is like the dumbest thing in the world.
Wicked weak. So they've released every cover but the cover for Batwoman.
Why?
I don't know, but they released it. They released it like yesterday.
Does it look cool?
So I know Sam is a fan of the new Batwoman.
I was.
Was.
I realized that J.H. Williams III left, so I haven't read anything past what he's done.
I hear it's still pretty good.
That can be that's I'm sure whatever, but that's my boy. J.H. Williams is I'm his fanboy, and he left me in the dust.
In the dust. So the cover of the 3D version of Batwoman, it shows Batwoman on the cover, and then when it does the 3D switch, it's her as a vampire.
Oh my!
So the story, which takes 5 years takes place 5 years in the future, she's going to be fighting Nocturna, a vampire, and there's potential of her being a vampire. How do you feel about that, Sam?
Her becoming a vampire?
Yeah, Batwoman prowling in the night as a vampire.
I think that's kind of the easy way out. Just being, hey, Batwoman's probably the most gothic Lolita character of the bunch. Let's make her a vampire. It's an easy transition. I think it's stupid. Why do we need vampires in the DC universe? Has there always been vampires?
Not that I know of. I mean, in Marvel there is, but not really DC. Not really. I mean, maybe they've mentioned it, but not really. It hasn't really been prevalent.
I mean, to me, it seems like using vampires, it just seems like vampires are just so played out. They're so completely played out. Like, it's very hard to do something interesting with vampires. And I understand that turning a super heroine into a vampire, I mean, apparently someone at that office thought that was gold. Well, I don't know who that was.
Yeah. Well, I think they're trying to going on the whole thing that she's the only lesbian in comics right now, and that she'd be a lesbian vampire, which were really hot stories maybe in the early 90s when you had like Interview with a Vampire and all those vampire movies and stuff, or those old school vampire books that were really popular in like the 70s
the lusty
and 80s.
vampire ones.
Yeah. So I mean, they're going for that, but is there an audience for that anymore? I don't know.
I
think it's a bad call.
I do too, because I like Batwoman a lot, and the fact that she's a vampire, I kind of think is really dumb, and would make me kind of not really want to read it. And that's just so unoriginal. Like, just think, like, you're DC. Like, you can create whatever you want. Like, why just take a few steps back and pick vampires, which has been done to death already? You know?
Right. And I mean, they have so many compelling stories in this 5-year, like, jump that are coming out in these 3D covers. And this is probably the most lamest story. Like, the lamest story of all of them, I think.
Eee.
Bad decision, DC.
Yeah, not a fan.
So another DC note I have for you guys. Recently, they released a new series called Secret Origins.
Okay.
Where they're giving you the New 52 swing on all the origins of the characters. So when you first read like the first issue of any New 52, it was set. It was 5 years into it.
Okay.
So like everything's set. Like the first Justice League is 5 years before the 52. And then there's some continuity of old DC still left on certain characters. Like Batman still died and his mind still was transferred through time. That still happened. So Dick Grayson was Batman for a time. And, certain Batman stories still happened. Like Nightfall still happened. Batman still had his back broke and stuff. Like all certain stories happened through all the characters. But they never really explain their origins. There was a quick 0 issue for each character, but this is going to go in depth of how their origin story is. So the second issue is going to have Aquaman, Batman, and Starfire, and they released some photos to get you interested in it.
Yeah, how do they look?
One of them shows Aquaman graduating from high school or college. One of them shows Batman in a chair really wounded, and I guess he's going to reminisce of how his parents got shot or something, because I hope they don't change his origin at all. And Starfire looks like she's just chilling on her planet with her mom or her sister or something. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see how they go. I mean, I hope they don't change anything differently in Batman. Aquaman, make him cooler. His origin before was okay. I also have some Marvel news. Marvel news is always fun and good. So Marvel's cinematic universe has been kind of on the ups and down right now.
So it's been a little fluxy.
Edgar Wright did the dip and left.
All right, let's talk about that, because that sucks.
It does suck, because that's the only reason I wanted to watch Ant-Man. I won't watch it now.
Edgar Wright, like his directing style would fit Ant-Man just so perfectly. Because I feel like most people don't take Ant-Man seriously at all,
and especially since it's going to be the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang.
Yeah, and Edgar Wright's like his humor, just like his editing style, just like the fast cuts, I feel like would just fit perfectly for a movie starring Scott Lang. Like, I
agree.
Like Scott Lang is just like really witty, a lot of self-doubt in his character.
Yeah.
But Edgar Wright,
it would have been awesome. I think it would have been great.
Like that was gonna be like the Marvel movie I've been looking forward to for years, because that's been announced since 2006.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So, Wright's out, and so is the showrunner for the Daredevil series on Netflix.
I heard about that.
The showrunner Drew Goddard, who did Goddard, sorry, my apologies, did Cabin in the Woods, Cloverfield, is out. The guy replacing him is Stephen DeKnight. Stephen S. DeKnight. Let me get the S in there, because in case there's another one.
He did Buffy, right?
He did Buffy. He did Angel. He did Dollhouse. What else did he work on? He worked on Smallville for a little bit, I believe. So yeah, he's had some run-ins with supers. Oh, and he also did Spartacus, the series for Starz, which I'm a huge fan of. I love Spartacus.
I've never watched Spartacus.
Oh, it was great. It was really good.
That's a bummer, though, because Drew Goddard, it might be Goddard. I actually don't know how to pronounce his name. Like, Cabin in the Woods is really good.
Yeah, I heard. I always wanted to see it. I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
No.
You would like it.
I'm definitely going to check it out at some point. I heard, though, that it's not necessarily a bad thing that he's leaving. He's going to be working on the Sinister Six movie, so he might have left to focus on that.
The Sinister Six.
That's right. But hopefully Daredevil's in good hands. I'm hoping. We also have some maybe sad news, I guess, maybe.
Sad news.
If you're a fan of the Inhumans. So, the Inhuman series was relaunched with Charles Soule writing it. And they brought superstar artist Joel Madura out of, like, semi-retirement. He hasn't done anything in a while. They brought him back. He has drawn the Inhumans before, I believe. His art for the Inhumans are pretty good. It's awesome, actually. For that, when you see it, you're like, that's Inhumans. So I guess he's leaving. He came back. They kind of relaunched it to have him back, and he's leaving after the 3rd issue. Don't know why he's leaving, but he's leaving. So that's pushing the ship date 5 weeks. So instead of coming out like end of the month, beginning of June, it's coming out like mid July now.
Okay.
So a lot of people aren't happy with this because he was one of the main reasons why they wanted to read the book. His art was so influential for the Inhumans, and now he's peacing out. And Ryan Stegman's going to be taking over for him from issue 4 on. Stegman's not a bad artist. I enjoy him. He's doing the current Wolverine book, and he draws Wolverine very well, like very short and stumpy and hairy and awesome.
Stumps. What else you got for us?
I also have something interesting. So, I talked about All New X-Men earlier. Loving it. The run's great. Bendis is a genius on it. Which is interesting is he teased something. He posted a photo of an undone cover. And it's the cover for All New X-Men 32. And it shows, the time-displaced All New X-Men, their teacher, Kitty Pryde. And in the middle, it shows Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man. And it says, "Welcome to the X-Men, Miles Morales." So the cover looks like the cover for the Uncanny X-Men 139, which it shows you all the X-Men are around in like a circle, and in the middle it shows Kitty Pryde when she first joined in. So it's almost the exact same cover except different people. So that's going to be interesting. And then he posted that this is absolutely real. Like, he's not fake. He's not because Bendis is known to be a trickster or a troll sometimes on the internet, but this is supposed to be legit. I don't know why he would do this. Maybe because I heard the sales for Ultimate Spider-Man is not doing too well. Like, the character's pretty cool. He's awesome, but the sales aren't doing so well. So it'll be interesting to see how they bring him to the 616 continuity and get him to be an X-Men. So, it's got me intrigued. I'll obviously check it out because I read it every month, but it's going to be cool, I think. What do you think, Sam? How do you feel about that?
The Inhumans?
No, All New X-Men.
Oh, the All New X-Men? I'm sorry.
With Miles Morales.
Meh. I think it's kind of dumb. I think everything's dumb apparently today.
Yeah, you're in a very dumbish mood.
Meh, not impressed. I guess I'll say that. I guess I'm glad. I never really read anything of Miles Morales in it. I'm glad he's included, I guess. But
I read him slightly. He's a cool character. He's obviously like a mixed raced Spider-Man. That's cool. It gives the that feel of racial feel. So it's not all white, powerful superheroes. You got some ethnic ones too.
No, that is nice.
And there's not too many ethnic X-Men either. So it's kind of cool to toss him in there, I guess. I hope it works. I mean, I hope it doesn't ruin the dynamic, because all new X-Men's super good.
I haven't read any all new X-Men. I read a lot of indie comics. Like, that's kind of like my thing.
So what's some cool indie comics you're reading right now, Sam?
Well, I mean...
Toss one out to us.
Anything by Michael DeForge.
Okay.
Anything, you should literally stop what you're doing and just go look at the artwork of Michael DeForge, because it is all awesome and incredibly mind-blowing and probably some of the best comic art I've seen in like years. I think this guy is literally a godsend, and his stuff is so bizarre, and I think it's really funny. So I get a kick out of it. But so yeah, Michael DeForge, he's really hot. He's really big on my list right now. He has this one little collection book called Very Casual. So I've been just rereading it like profusely.
Okay.
Just because the art is I just can't get over how awesome, just defined and wacky and weird it is.
Does he do the art? Does he do the writing and the art?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
in the indie comics world, baby, everyone does it themselves.
You'll have to let me borrow it. I'll have to check it out.
Another one I've been reading is there's an artist named Jason. This
Okay.
goes by the name of Jason. He's a European artist. He makes a lot of comics of anthropomorphic characters. So they're all just like animals, but they
Okay,
they
but
wear like human clothes.
Right. Okay.
And there's like there's barely any dialogue. Like, it's all really witty. It's really dry humor.
Uh-huh.
And recently, like he had a new book come out called Lost Cat, where
Lost Cat.
this cat disappears, and eventually aliens come and take over the planet. It's very bizarre, but this guy, he's awesome. I love Jason. He's from Norway.
Oh wow, okay, Norway, a little Norway
He has
love.
one book called I Killed Adolf Hitler,
Ooh,
which is like one of my favorite comics of all time.
okay.
I'm trying to think what else I've been reading indie-wise. I've been toying with the idea of reading Cerebus, but that's such a massive... Are you familiar with Cerebus?
No,
By Dave Sims?
not at all.
Look it up on the computer. You probably recognize the character. Cerebus by Dave Sims. Cerebus is like one of the most well-known indie comics like ever made. This went on for like volumes, and like the volumes were like phone book size.
Okay.
Like, they were thick. I forget how many. I feel like it went into the 20s.
Oh, that little like piggish looking guy.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
I've been toying with the idea of reading it.
It looked the drawing looks cool at least.
Yeah, no, it's
Artwork looks awesome.
yeah, but like it's such a big staple of like creator-owned comics. Like Dave Sims was like huge like when this came out. Like, like everyone's like, dude, this guy doesn't work for the big two. I feel like in the comic book industry, it's kind of like the movie industry in America. It's like you've made it if you work for like the big one. In the movie
Right.
industry, it's Hollywood. In comics, it's either DC or Marvel. It's like if you work for those guys, you made it. But like this guy though, he was like, screw that, and like he just went out, drew it, wrote it, and just produced it and just put it out himself. And like that was like such a big deal back then. And like he's a legend.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome.
So I've been toying with the idea of reading it, but like I said, it's such a massive undertaking that I'm kind of put back. I also have like a lot of comics at my house that I want to read that I haven't. I have stacks of graphic novels.
You do. I've seen them.
That I need to
Sam
get
has
through.
a lot of graphic novels.
Like I have all of Transmetropolitan, and I haven't read it. And that's like 10 volumes right there. I read the first volume like a year ago.
Wow.
So I need to read that. I want to reread The Sandman and The Invisibles by Grant Morrison. There's just so much. I've had this copy of Habibi by
Habibi.
what's his face? Craig Thompson, who wrote Blankets.
Okay.
Have you read Blankets? Is awesome. I love Blankets. It was very touching. And that's been sitting on my shelf too for like a year now. God knows how long.
You gotta knock the dust off those books, Sam, and start reading.
That's what I'm trying to do. But you know, when it comes to like comics, I'm a bargain hunter. You know, I don't like dropping $20 for a graphic novel because that's just too expensive.
You're very frugal, my friend.
But you know, if I see something like I want to read and it's like dirt cheap, you know, I'll pick it up, and then it gets tossed on the shelf, and it sits there forever. But lately, I've been picking up the pace and, you know, just plowing through all the stuff I have, and just getting it done. Even superhero stuff, I found this book by Frank Miller it's called Elektra Lives.
Okay.
It's like a very small kind of, I guess, graphic. It was in the graphic novel section, so I guess the graphic novel. But he drew and wrote it, I guess. And I've never even heard of it before until like I just stumbled upon it.
I hear it's supposed to be really good.
It looks cool. You're not confusing it with the big one, are you?
I might be.
Because there's one of like the art looks all pastel painting like.
Yes.
All right, that's also good. I have that.
But it's
I
not
think
that
that's
one.
I think that's Elektra Assassin.
Yes. All right, folks, we're going out to break. Remember, though, next week we will have DC Comics The New 52 on. If you want to check them out, facebook.com. Aquaman is badass. We'll be right back. We are back to some very fitting music, because me and Sam are about to give our thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past. So if you do not want spoilers, this segment might not be for you, so you might want to
tune out if you haven't seen the movie.
Tune out for a little bit, come back. Please do come back. But we are going to be spoiler heavy right now, so be ready, guys. Here it is. Last chance. Here come the spoilers. So, Sam, what are your thoughts?
Meh.
Sam's not a huge fan of the movie.
Alright, so I'm not. I love comic books, but I feel comic book movies just aren't that great. Obviously, there are standout ones that I really do like when it comes to superheroes. You know, and I like the X-Men. And X-Men Days of Future Past, I liked it. I just don't think it was awesome. A lot of people seem to be like flipping their crap over it, you know, just being like, "Oh my god, this is the best X-Men movie ever made. It's fantastic. You get everything you want and more." But I think that there are flaws in it. So in my eyes, that doesn't make it a perfect movie. I think there are better superhero movies than Days of Future Past.
I agree with that. Definitely Captain America 2 was better.
I liked Captain America 2 more also.
And The Avengers was better.
That's arguable. I wasn't too hot on the Avengers movie.
Well,
that's an argument for another day, though.
But I felt the movie almost gave you everything you wanted. Almost. I mean, there were a couple, like, little gripes. Like, they never explained how Xavier came back from the end of Last Stand, which they kind of hinted they were going to tell you how it happened at the end of the Wolverine, but they don't. Xavier's just there. I don't know how, but he is.
Well, maybe they'll explain it in the next movie.
Nope, that is. So there's a chance they could fix it because they fix everything.
They're just teasing you, brah.
They're just teasing me.
Just teasing you.
But what really got me angry, or let me down at least, I felt they dropped the ball with this. So they put Wolverine as the main character instead of Kitty Pryde, which in the comics, Kitty Pryde goes back in time to stop the decimation of the world from Sentinels. And she goes back in time to basically warn everyone to, stop what they're doing so the future won't happen. In the movie, it's obviously Wolverine because he's a much more popular character, and at least in the cinema series, he is. But you figure they brought Wolverine in because he's going to do Wolverine-ish things. That's my thought. I thought, it's going to be Days of Future Past with a little more action. But, you get a couple action scenes with Wolverine, but I thought the movie was going to be a little bit more action-packed. And, granted, there's great action scenes with, like, the future X-Men, but not really Wolverine. So they kind of misled me on that. And then, like, the whole movie, they kind of get you revved up because while he's in the past, he has this bone clause because his future consciousness is in his past body. So he's before the adamantium. So the whole movie, they keep hinting that there's going to be this big throwdown between him and Magneto. And you're getting all hyped up. Like, they toss, like, barbs at each other and one-liners at each other, like, the whole movie. And you're like, all right, it's starting to boil over. At some point, Wolverine and Magneto are going to go at it. Like, it's going to be an epic battle. And then towards the end of the movie, it starts to happen. Magneto starts, like, throwing everything at Wolverine. He's just cutting everything down, running towards him. And you're like, here we go. This is it. Let's get ready to rumble. And then he gets a cement block, rips out the steel beams, stabs them into Wolverine's body, ties him up, and throws him into the ocean. And that's how it ends. They don't fight at all. And I just felt like that was a big dropping of the ball because they just hyped it so much.
Hyped it?
Like, the whole movie, they kept hyping it. Like, the point where Magneto kind of, like, goes nuts in the plane and starts destroying everything metal. And you see Wolverine freak out for a second because he thinks he's going to be affected, but then he realizes he has bones. Or, like, earlier on when he first pops out the claws and he sees their bones, he's like, oh, they're bones. Like, he's like, surprised. And then they just keep pumping at it that he has bones and his metal can't be affected. Or towards the end when there's a metal detector and he walks in, he expects it to go off and he doesn't because he has no metal on him. So in my mind, at least, I'm thinking, okay, they're really pushing that he has the bones. There's going to be a fight between him and Magneto. And there wasn't. I mean,
it just sounds like you're just a whore Wolverine to me.
I don't. So you didn't expect a little fight or anything?
We did. We got this fight, but I mean, the movie's not about Wolverine. There's already movies about Wolverine fighting people.
I agree, but nobody really fought Magneto.
Because that's not the point, though. Like, there's like a broader point that's trying to be made in this movie. You know, like the entire thing is like, it's like should Trask be killed? Like, will that change anything?
Right, I get that, but I mean, I just had that feeling of the
hype. I feel a massive Wolverine fight would be too pandering to the
Not
audience.
necessarily massive. They could have had like a small one. It could have been they could have at least come to blows. You know, you got nothing. Like he cuts, like he blocks two or three things that Magneto throws at him, and then that's it.
But I'm kind of like Wolverine's present because he has to be present because it's Xmen. But I'm also kind of glad he took the back seat because I like Mystique and I like Magneto. I like seeing everyone else do stuff too.
Right, like I didn't want him to be like the main premise of the movie, but it just would have been cool to see him lock horns with Wolverine because in future movies he's probably not going to be able to.
You think so?
Yeah, because they're going to put the metal back on him.
That is true.
So like that was the one chance to finally see like a Magneto Wolverine fight where it's fair, where it's equal grounds.
Yeah, Wolverine would have torn him apart.
I wouldn't say that.
You would have torn him apart. Like, oh, I can hear the Xmen in the background.
No. That means that we got to go to a break. Oh no.
All right, Xmen is as Xmen does. Overall, I don't think it's a bad movie at all. It's fun. The stuff with Bishop is really cool. I think they just stuffed way too many characters in a movie that honestly just have no dialogue whatsoever.
Yeah, the future fight scenes were awesome. They were really, really cool. Yeah, it just didn't. It wasn't as epic as I expected. They made it look like it was going to be epic, and it wasn't. It was good, really, really good, just not epic. All right, guys, we'll be back shortly. We're going to break. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to Static Rift. Today we have a special guest. He is the author of the new book Console Wars. His name is Blake J. Harris. Welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Thank
Blake.
you guys for having me. I'm psyched to be here.
And we're psyched to have you.
So your book really caught my attention because, you know, when I started playing video games and really got into it, I'm 26. You know, my first consoles were the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. So
Same here with me.
Reading this whole backstory was just completely fascinating.
How did you guys get those Sega Genesises and Super Nintendos? From your parents? Did you save up for it?
My mom bought, because I have siblings, and I guess just juggling kids around, got bored. So she's like, "Screw this! I'm just gonna buy something. You kids just play it." So she got us a Super Nintendo, and I was playing Super Nintendo a lot of Mario, and all my friends had Sega, and I was super jealous, just because Sonic just moved so fast. I was like, I need to play that. So just one day at a yard sale, I saw a Sega Genesis with the Sonic, and I what money I had, I just threw down and I brought it home. So that's my story.
That's similar with me. Like my parents got me like Nintendo, and it was cool and I liked it, but I saw the commercials for Sonic and I immediately like fell in love with them. Like to this day, Sonic's probably my favorite video game character. So I've just always fell in love with them, and Genesis was like it for me. It was just awesome.
What's your preference?
So I had a 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System, which I got in the late 80s, and me and my brother played it all the time. And we wanted a Super Nintendo, naturally, because we love Nintendo. But my father, I distinctly remember him saying that he wouldn't get us the Super Nintendo because then Nintendo would just come out with a super duper Nintendo, then a super duper Nintendo. And so somehow as a loophole to that, we got a Sega Genesis. And sort of that's a little bit of what got me into writing this book from the business side, because, back then I wouldn't have really associated my father's decision, which I assumed was just him being kind of mean, was actually kind of like it was a business-related decision. Nintendo chose for financial reasons not to make the new system backwardly compatible, and that affected people like me and millions of others. So I ended up with a Sega Genesis, which was great because I, too, loved those commercials. I absolutely loved Sonic. And as a kid, and even now, I played mostly sports games. So Sega was the better system for that.
Hey, I can totally see that. I'm not a big sport game fan, but I can easily say Sega had better sport games.
Definitely.
They
did have some really
Nintendo.
cool sports games.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I spoke with the people from Electronic Arts, because they had a pretty interesting role in the story and also were just physically kind of close to Sega, when I would tell them what I had played, they would always say, was that one for Super Nintendo or Genesis? Because they were so much prouder of the game on the Genesis. I guess it just was easier for them to program, or it somehow ended up being more graceful in the end.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends back in the day who were super pro Sega, and they would say stuff like it's for the Sega Genesis. Like, I have a Sega Genesis. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, man. That's great. I'm stuck with Super Nintendo. Like, I don't care. I mean, but what do you feel has, like, the better library, game library-wise? Do you prefer Super Nintendo, or do you prefer Sega solely just because of the sport games?
That's a good question. I mean, kind of like your experience. I had a Sega growing up. I did always kind of covet Super Nintendo. And then when I was 18, I saved up some money and bought the Super Nintendo and library from like one of the kids in my class who had moved on to something much better. And to this day, the one I have in my apartment is the Super Nintendo. So I think that in the long run, I prefer the Super Nintendo. I love, even on there, the sports games, the Ken Griffey Jr. baseball game. I think that, sort of as I portray in the book, Nintendo kind of plays the long game with the Super Nintendo and has a longer life cycle and really continues focusing on it for a few years after Sega. And some of those games that came out in 94, 95, like Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country, are some of my favorites. And that's why I would end up preferring the Super Nintendo. But I certainly love both systems. And as I was writing this book, played both a lot.
So do you feel that Sega had the much better marketing campaign over Nintendo?
Definitely. A lot of that, or not a lot, but a portion of that was because of the position that Nintendo was just in. It's easier to take risks when you're the underdog and kind of the only way you have to go. But even to this day, I think that Nintendo is much more focused on product development and making great games than they are on marketing those products. And I think the Wii U is a really good example of that. I have a Wii U, and the games I can attest are good. But conceptually, I still don't quite understand what it is supposed to be and why there's a tablet that's not really a tablet. It's just like a big Game Boy DS. And, I think that Sega was focused on marketing, and there's also maybe a negative connotation to be focused on marketing because I always really enjoyed Jeff Goodby, who did the Welcome to the Next Level campaign for Sega. He told me the first time we met that whenever he's at a party, if someone says they're a filmmaker, people imagine the greatest films, and if they say they're a writer, they imagine the greatest books. But when you tell somebody you're an ad executive and you do marketing, they imagine the worst commercials. So people sort of have a negative opinion of marketing. But I think that what Sega did was really transformative and changed the experience, and sort of in the way that you talk about Sonic, that he's still your favorite character to this day. That's a marketing thing. And it's the same way for me, because I was just so awed by him, not just as a game that was really impressive, but just as this character that sort of created an icon that I aspired to be. So I definitely think Sega was much more marketing savvy, and really they changed the way a video game business runs. Nintendo was certainly a great maker of games, but they were very childish games, and at the time, video games were just a big, a child's toy. And now it's really, I think the average age is about 35 of the game players.
Do you think that the smear campaign that that Sega pretty much created, do you think it worked in the long run? Well, not in the long run, because Sega doesn't really exist anymore making consoles.
But for that war, at least.
Yeah, but for that war, for the Sega Nintendo war, you solely believe Sega came out on top?
No, I don't. I think that the last section of the book is called The Tortoise and the Hare, and I think that in the end, Sega's flashy nature ended up, paling in comparison to Nintendo's longer-term strategy and game focus. But, if you go back to 1990 and you look at the market, with Nintendo having over 90% of this $3 billion a year industry, I mean, the fact that even somebody could compete with them and not just get wiped off the face of the earth itself is kind of a victory. And not only did Sega compete with Nintendo, but in 1993 and 94, they actually surpassed them. So there was a period of time where they definitely were the winners in the console war. And I think that the smear campaign and going after Nintendo head to head, either calling them out or just showing their product side by side, absolutely worked. As somebody at the time who was just a kid, I remember on the schoolyard, vehemently defending Sega, even though I maybe didn't even know why, but just because I felt like Sega had created this dichotomy of Sega versus Nintendo people, and you had to be one or the other, and I had to fight for my life to defend Sega. So I definitely think it worked, and the fact that even we're still talking about it this day, 20 years later, shows that it works. And though Sega did end up not succeeding as they'd wanted to in the long run, I think they also really set the stage for Sony, which would not have happened without them, and inevitably with Microsoft as well. So their legacy kind of carries on if the company itself doesn't in the console world.
Agreed. Yeah, very true. So Blake, we hear that you're going to be putting out 2 movies based on the book. Can you tell us anything about them?
Absolutely. So a couple of years ago, I met with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, his writing and directing and producing partner, and told them about this project that I was working on. At that point, I had been working on this for about a year. I'd interviewed about 75 people from Sega and Nintendo and told them just about this incredibly exciting and chaotic Wild West world of video games. And it really piqued their interest, and they decided that they wanted to produce a documentary based on the book that I have been directing with Jonah Tulis, my business partner. And we shot 15 interviews last year, and we are now in post-production on that. Nice. And then in addition to that, there's also a feature film adaptation of the book, which Seth and Evan are attached to write and to direct, and Sony Pictures has the option on. And those guys are also producing it along with Scott Rudin, who's pretty much the best and biggest producer in the world.
Wow.
And for me personally, my biggest inspirations for writing the book were Michael Lewis books and Ben Mesrick books like Moneyball and The Accidental Billionaires, which Scott Rudin has adapted into feature films, Moneyball and The Social Network. So it's kind of, it really is a dream come true for me to have these guys involved. And I'm really excited to see where we go.
That's great. Where do you plan to go from here, though? Do you plan on tackling the game industry again?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about it more and more. Initially, my plan was not to. I think that there's certainly a lot of compelling stories in the video game world, both then and now. And a part of me is tempted to write a sequel or just to keep writing about the console war that came next. And that's maybe something I would like to do in my life. But what I really, at some point in my life, but what I really liked about the Sega Nintendo battle was that, this was sort of the era that was really transformative for the video game industry. So it wasn't just, a battle that comes in a cycle of these hardware products, but it was one that I think really changed where we are today with video games. So I guess the short answer is that after 3 years working on this, I would like to take a break from the video game world, but I do and did love it so much that at some point, again, I would definitely love to write a longer work, and in the meantime, hopefully write some articles about some of the great side stories and side characters that I ran across in the course of my research.
Are you a Dreamcast fan?
I am. My parents were always kind of stingy with the consoles. They did get us the Genesis, but it was really hard. We eventually got a PlayStation. I always wanted a Nintendo 64 and couldn't get it. And same thing with the Dreamcast. But my brother and I had kind of worn our parents down to the point where they were finally getting us the Dreamcast, which I remember thinking just looked so much smoother and more exciting than any other console I'd ever seen before, particularly as a sports fan, the 2K games like the football and the basketball.
Yeah.
But right before we were finally going to get this thing, Sega announced that they were exiting the hardware business, and it was kind of worthless.
That was like the one like mainstay, I guess, from Dreamcast was the whole 2K series, because they're still around and they're probably the best sports games now.
Yeah, and that's nice. That's good, because those were really what I really like about the 2K series is that, as games get better and better, and they certainly do, not just graphically, but in terms of the story and the technological capabilities, they do in a way become often more lifelike, and that is probably a good thing, and I think something that people probably appreciate. But for me, maybe just because I'm old-fashioned, I'm 31 years old, and I remember growing up with Mario and Sonic, I like sort of that cartoony feel and that sort of like magical, otherworldly feel of video games. And the 2K sports games do a really good job of blending, the real players and actually looking like the real players and moving like them, but still sort of feels a little bit like NBA Jam, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the console war going on right now between PS4 and Xbox One?
Well, it's super interesting that it's between PS4 and Xbox One and not Nintendo Wii U, which was, kind of in the way that Sega had become the first to the 16-bit generation. Nintendo here was the first one with a next-gen console, and nobody ever even mentions them, and nor should they, because they're not really doing the same type of thing, and they've been not doing very well. I think that it's super fascinating to see the moves back and forth. I think that Titanfall has begun to play a really big role in changing things. But I think that there really, in the end, will be a big enough market for both systems. They, unlike this Sega and Nintendo era, where not only were we soldiers on the front lines kind of choosing between the systems and arguing on the playground, I think that the developers had a much bigger choice to make, and the retailers too, because it was kind of this Wild West era where there wasn't as many rules and as much infrastructure in place. And nowadays, I feel like there are certainly differences between the PS4 and the Xbox One. But in terms of how I would use either one in my home, I don't think it would be that different. I think it would be, for the most part, similar games and similar utility of streaming television shows and using it in my home. Maybe the Xbox One, as it aims to be, would be a little bit more of a central hub, but it doesn't feel as much like the political parties of my youth between Sega and Nintendo.
Now, do you feel that Nintendo is doomed to follow the same path that Sega did, that eventually they're going to become just like a software developer and stop producing consoles?
I mean, it certainly seems that way the past few weeks, especially answering questions like this with Nintendo announcing their recent financial earnings or lack of earnings.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I always find kind of interesting is probably the question I was asked most while researching the project, just amongst friends and family members, was whatever happened to Sega? And people talk about Sega like they were this big failure, and they probably failed compared to their expectations, but they are a profitable software maker. It's not like they filed for bankruptcy and are disbanded and Sega isn't around anymore. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if Nintendo did go that route, it's not like it would be the biggest disaster in the world. They still do make great games. But if there's one thing I learned about Nintendo from my research, it's that they are a pretty stubborn company. They like to be in control of things, and that sounds kind of maybe Machiavellian, but I don't mean it that way. A big part of their control is that they make great products. So I think it'll be much less likely that they'll relent that control and just become a third-party developer. But at the same time, I don't know what the other option is. I mean, I think they still do pretty well with handheld equipment. And in terms of the console, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to compete against Microsoft or Sony, though maybe the Mario Kart game will help. But, I don't see them launching a new console in the next year or two, so they're going to kind of have to ride this out. What do you guys think? I mean, you certainly have special places in your heart for Nintendo, and also video games at large. What do you see as Nintendo's future?
I mean, personally, I would rather they stick to handhelds. I don't have a Wii U, mainly because a lot of the core games that I'm kind of looking forward to just aren't coming out for the Wii U. Like they have like a new Smash Brothers game coming out for the Wii U, but it's also coming out on the 3DS. So I already own a 3DS, so that's fine with me, but Smash Brothers would be a big draw-in for me. My problem is that I feel like in the recent years, even back to like the Wii, I'd be like, oh man, I want a new Donkey Kong game. Give me a Donkey Kong game. And they would give me Donkey Konga. And I was like, what is this? All right, whatever. And it was just kind of like stuff like that. I want to give me some Star Fox. I see some Star Fox going on. And they gave me like that Star Fox like third-person action game. I was like, I don't want this.
That game was actually really good, though.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. It was absolutely really good.
I wanted to pilot a ship and just dogfight.
Well, you do get to pilot a ship occasionally.
Am I just an idiot? Should I have just played this game? And
you should. I'm telling you, it really.
No, but I think that like you're kind of talking about something that I've been thinking about lately with them is they're also in a tough spot because their big draw is these great characters and these great intellectual properties that we all grew up with and love and have a special place in our heart. And I think that part of us wants to just keep playing newer versions of the same game where you're basically just playing Star Fox in HD and with better graphics and new stories, but at the same time, when I was playing the new Mario game, which is kind of exactly that, it's just the newer Mario, it felt like redundant. And I think that after however many generations, it's kind of starting to, there's like a little bit of fatigue. I mean, I still love the Nintendo games, but I was playing through the Mario game and I had 50 lives. I was clearly going to win this thing. It was just a matter of time. And it was like, I kind of feel like I've already played these levels, whether it was Super Mario 3D Land for the DS or the Super Mario All-Stars back in the day, or they're it's tough for them because they kind of want to deliver a newer version of what you loved, and they also are kind of trying to break free and do stuff like with Star Fox, but then and with Donkey Konga, but then that kind of is off-putting, and I feel the same way where I'm like, oh come on, I just wanted the newer version of this game I love.
It just seems like they don't really know how to balance it because they're not sure if they want to cater to older gamers or the young gamers that are coming up that are coming into video games. It just seems like they don't know what they want to do.
Well, that's exactly how I feel as well, and that's why I said earlier on that like from a marketing standpoint, I still think Nintendo is not really, I wouldn't say savvy because they certainly have like people who know what they're doing, but as a consumer, I'm still not quite getting the message. I got the Wii U because I was writing about Nintendo, and it happened to be Christmas and it was on sale, and I just got it kind of on a whim, but like I don't know who it's trying to be sold to. Is it for people that are casual gamers? Is it for people who used to play games but don't anymore? Is it for families and it's supposed to be like the family video game? And if it is the family video game, why is there one tablet when I know that if I was a kid and my brother didn't have the tablet, we would fight like crazy because there was only one tablet? So that that it doesn't maybe seem like a marketing decision, but there's sort of a perception problem with the Wii U and what part of the market and what kind of consumer it's trying to appeal to. And I've had it and played it and enjoyed it, but I still don't even really know.
It seems to me they don't even know their own identity.
Yeah, I think that they're going through a transition now, and one way that they could try to approach, get finding that identity and giving the kinds of games that are like we're used to, but also the new ones, would be if they could increase their output and have other people developing for them, and have, or I mean, I guess people do it for the Wii U, but basically what I'm saying is if they were less controlling with their Mario, Zelda, and Donkey Kong franchise games, a lot of times the other question I was asked so often, aside from whatever happened to Sega, was, "Oh, when's Mario going to be available on iTunes or in the iStore or Google Play?" And that it seems like that's a pretty good distribution network for games, and it would be great if Mario was there. But if you know anything about Nintendo, you know that they're never going to give up those games and those titles to anybody outside their own virtual store. But maybe it's time to relax that stance a bit, or at least find partners who can help not just get the games out there, but also help develop maybe mini games or other ideas. I just think they should be open to some new ideas, and I hope that they will be.
So you're obviously very passionate about it. Do you feel if they put out another console and maybe in the next year or two or next couple of years, would you maybe think of getting it? Or are you done with like how they're doing things?
I think because they make great games, I've rarely have I bought a Nintendo game and ever wished I could return it. I've always been so happy with it. So I think that there's always going to be some part of me, regardless of my affection, that is just intellectually interested in buying the game because I'm used to it being a good experience. But I would, if they offered it a new console, I would sincerely hope that it had some sort of specific branding and knowing what this console was supposed to be. Because as silly as it is to us that's like a reason that we would pick up and play a game or pick up a game and buy it, I think that really plays a big deal. I remember the first time I heard about the Wii U, my first thought is like, oh, Wii University, or this is like some graduate version of the Wii, but I don't know like what, I don't understand really what it is other than just an HD version of the Wii. And I already had a Wii, and I really liked the Wii because I understood what that was. That was like, putting this new innovative gameplay where you interact with the television at the forefront, over graphics and technological superiority. This was about the way we interact with our television, and I don't understand what the Wii U is.
It's just a shame because I feel the 3DS has such incredibly interesting games, like like Zero is just like there's just so many games that aren't on the Wii U but take way more challenges. Like they're just far more creative. I think the art style is a lot better. They're more challenging, and just the style of gameplay is just so unique and creative. But they're all on the handheld. It's just like no one just wants to design a game for like the Wii U. Like I know like Bayonetta 2 is gonna come out for the Wii U, and I'm like I would want to play that, but it's just a barren desert for me as far as.
Well, it's kind of a good point. Just in terms of another reason that I liked learning about and writing about the 16-bit generation is because the costs of making the games back then was more along the lines of $500,000 to a few $1,000,000. And, you could take a lot more risks for that amount of money. It's harder to convince the powers that be to take a risk on a $30 million game that's a little bit funky, like a Toe Jam and Earl type game. And I think that's maybe why you're seeing, more risks taken and more clever, funky games for the 3DS, because it's a lower cost to enter that market, whereas for the Wii U, it's probably a much bigger endeavor. And I'm like you, I definitely pull out my 3DS much more than I ever play the Wii U. And I was wondering, do you use the 3D feature on the 3DS?
Oh, no, I never do. It hurts my eyes.
And that's kind of a problem. I guess it's not a problem because I still play it a lot, but I'm sure that I'm paying for that in some way because that was like the big draw of it.
I bought it because the latest Mario and the new Zelda game. I wasn't sure like if the 3D if you need the 3D to get past parts of those games, because I know parts of the games utilize the 3D.
Yeah,
I believe. I haven't played them yet, but from what I understand, it's like parts of the games from what I thought was that you had to turn the 3D on to do it. So that's why I bought the 3DS. But every other game so far, like I'll flip it on when I'm playing like Pokemon or something. I'm just like, this is stupid. Like this hurts my eyes. Like I'm not gonna play like this. So I never use it.
Yeah, I was curious. Me neither. And that's the first time I got it, or when I got it, I played the Mario 3D Land and played it through, and it was really cool in 3D. Certainly to not be wearing glasses, but it did hurt my eyes. And then I've never played anything else with the 3D, and that's also a bad sign when your biggest feature is not even part of the reason that people are buying it or playing it.
Yeah. But it's a very interesting point in video games right now. The Oculus Rift coming out.
Yeah.
More games are accepting, online, free to play. There's so much to tackle right now. So I'm very interested to see where Nintendo goes. I really hope that they don't end up as a third party.
Me too.
But I mean, time will tell. I can only make so many mistakes. But I have faith. Or just clinging on to nostalgia, I guess.
Yeah, no, me too. And, there's some, blind affection on my part, and hopefully just hope that they'll turn around. But I guess the good news for all of us is that even if for whatever reason tomorrow they said we're getting out of the hardware business and they were going to do the software, we would at least still see a lot of these great titles, even if they were released on PS4 and Xbox. But, it's not like Nintendo would just disappear, at least.
That was very true.
Yeah.
All right, Blake. Well, thank you for calling into our show.
My pleasure.
It was a great talk. Console Wars, Sega and Nintendo, and the battle that defined a generation is out now. You can purchase it. You should definitely check it out because if you like video games and grew up playing it, this is pretty critical and there's a whole lot of nostalgia.
It's a great read. It's definitely a great read.
It's very fun to read.
Thank you.
So this is Static Riff. Stick around. We'll be back for more.
Welcome back. I just want to give another thank you to Blake J. Harris. His book is Console Wars. Check it out. It is great. And he's a very cool dude, as you have noticed.
Yeah, very cool. Very super knowledgeable. It's always we always like talking to people about video games. That's clearly our thing. And clearly Blake is a video game historian, which is awesome because that's I also like to aspire to be that one day. I like the history of games. So it's very
and he's very cool. Passionate, which is awesome. I love talking to passionate people. That's one of the best things, to have a good conversation with a passionate person.
Yeah, we've had some bad interviews with people on the show before where it's just like, what do you think? Yeah.
Oh, well,
and it's like, Jesus, like
it's like, am I talking to Eeyore or a game developer? But Blake was definitely not that. That was probably our best interview. Again, thank you, Blake. That was awesome.
Do we have anything lined up for next week? What's the deal for next week? You have a shout out, right?
I do have a shout out. So I just wanted to hype it one more time because we are going to end the show a little early. So we're almost going to head out in a couple moments. So I just wanted to quickly say, me and Sam are going to say what we're looking forward to. So I'll go first. Obviously, I'm looking forward to my panel next week. We're going to have a nice little comic panel again with DC Comics, the New 52. Again, please check them out. They're awesome guys. Their Facebook link is facebook.com/Aquaman-is-badass. So check them out. Give them a like. You'll like it if you're into DC, you're into Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern. They cover it all. They're awesome dudes. Check them out. And they will be on next week, so you will be able to hear their wonderful, sweet voices. And also, something else I'm looking forward to is Original Sin. I have the second issue. I'm going to break into it tonight, and I'll have a review for you guys next week.
Oh, you're late on the game.
I'm a little late. I did get it Wednesday, but
It's okay.
I've been so busy with the con and everything.
Hey, it's okay, man.
But what are you looking forward to, Sam?
Maleficent.
Oh, you keep talking about it and raving it. I know you really want to see this movie.
Maleficent.
Sam loves Angelina Jolie.
That is very not true.
Let's
not spread slander. Angelina Jolie pales in comparison to her hubby, and I love Brad Pitt. I mean, come on, like
who doesn't?
He's awesome. Like he's great and everything. He's handsome.
He's very handsome.
Angelina Jolie starred in Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
which was a very
not
good
that
movie.
good.
I'll take my girlfriend to see it. I don't know.
Ooh, so you're really gonna see it?
I kind of want to see it.
Oh, Sam's seeing it. It's official.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna see Maleficent. I feel awful.
He really doesn't, folks. He doesn't. He really wants to see it.
Yeah, just Disney. I feel like Disney is just mining itself over and over and over. It's like saving Mr. Banks. Let's go back and make a movie about so people can go watch Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland. People can go back and watch Alice in Wonderland. Maleficent. People can go back and watch Sleeping Beauty.
And then they'll conveniently drop the Diamond Edition of Sleeping Beauty like right after Maleficent comes out.
Coming out of the vault for a very short period of time.
For 1 week only, you can get the Diamond Edition of Sleeping Beauty.
The Ultra Ray Blue Disc /DVD /direct download combo pack /
with 15
VHS tape.
hours of extra footage.
The work print cut. It has like a little briefcase like the Blade Runner came out in.
Diamonds all over it. Diamond edition.
The case is made out of actual diamonds, so it's
Yeah,
like
just
10
complete
grand.
diamonds, and Sleeping Beauty is on the cover sleeping.
All right, everyone, that's it for our show today. We had great times, as always. Once again, be sure to come back next week. We have the DC52 guys coming on for an interview. It'd be a very fun time. Check us out at facebook.com/StatGriffRadio, as well as on Twitter.
And Instagram on the same handle.
And also StatGriff Gaming on Twitch TV.
Sadly, tonight there will not be a Twitch. We're sorry. The holiday. Sam's mom's birthday.
My mom's birthday today, everybody.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Cooper.
She's a lovely lady.
She is very lovely. So there will be no Twitch tonight, sadly, but we'll make it up to you next week. We'll have like an extra rousing edition of after
An
show.
extra arousing edition.
Yes, rousing. Maybe we'll get Spider-Man with those cheeks on.
Oh my god, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
All right, everyone. See you later. 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 Later.